Hello, I'm Pastor Quincy Wheeler, and I want to welcome you to the second session of our series called Jesus at Christmastime. This is a series where we're looking at a particular passage of Scripture that tells us what Jesus was doing and saying at one particular time in his life around December 25th. So, of course, we know Jesus wasn't celebrating Christmas. That's called his birthday. But we know that he was celebrating a feast called the Feast of Dedication, which today those of Jewish faith celebrate as Hanukkah. And it, of course, is the reminder of the time that the Maccabean revolt threw off the reign of the Greek Empire over the Jewish people, allowing them to worship God as God had intended for them to worship him. So last time we had a chance to look at John chapter 10, verses 22 through 23. Today we're going to read verses 24 through 26 and take a look at what that passage has to tell us about what Jesus was saying and doing during this time of his life, which we now celebrate as Christmas time in our day. So we're going to take a look at John chapter 10, verses 24 through 27 today, and get a sense of the conversation that Jesus has in this passage. John chapter 10, verse 24 reads, "The Jews who were gathered around him there were saying, 'How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly.' Jesus answered, 'I did tell you, but you do not believe. The works I do in my Father's name testify about me, but you do not believe because you are not my sheep. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me.'" Now, there's a turn of phrase at the beginning of this verse that should be pretty familiar to those of us who've ever been a child celebrating Christmas. The Jews say to Jesus, "The suspense is killing us." That's the phrase that they use. They basically say, "Hey, why are you letting us just waste away with anticipation to know who you are?" Now, I don't know about you, but I remember as a kid so looking forward to Christmas and not being able to sleep, wanting to get up really early in the morning, wanting to look and touch and shake different presents that were under the tree, not being able to wait till that day when I would get to see what I was given for Christmas. Now, in my case, it was usually a book, which might not seem exciting to you, but man, I love books, and I loved books then, and I still love books now. And it would be so amazing to be able to open up the box and say, "Oh, I'll finally be able to read this book that I've been waiting to get to enter into the adventure and the story contained there." So that same kind of waiting anticipation, hey, the suspense is killing me, that's the kind of mindset that the Jews bring into this conversation with Jesus. Now, in John, the phrase "the Jews" often refers to, and most often refers to, the Jewish leaders who are opposing Jesus. In John 10, we are given the last confrontation that Jesus has with these leaders in the Gospel of John. In all the Gospels, we see Jesus having confrontations with the religious and political leaders of his day, and they kind of come to a conclusion, and then ultimately, of course, Jesus is crucified as a result of these conflicts. So the last one of these confrontations given for us is in John 10. It's fair to ask how sincere these questioners of Jesus are. What did they plan to do with the knowledge, with the statement if Jesus were to say, "Hey, yeah, I am the Messiah, I'm the anointed one"? Is anyone's guess. It doesn't seem that the results would have been good for Jesus, and that they would have escalated the conflict into a political one that they could have brought before Pilate, resulting in Jesus' death, which ultimately, of course, is what they planned to do. It's important to ask ourselves, as we feel the anticipation, the suspense of Christmas, are we really waiting on what Jesus wants to give us at Christmas? In a bigger sense than waiting on presents, are we waiting on him to reveal the truth about who he is and who he wants us to be? That should be the suspense that is guiding and pushing our lives in the direction that Jesus wants it to go. The main question before the Jews and before Jesus: is he the Messiah? Is he the anointed one that God has sent? And Jesus answers this question by saying, "I did tell you the answer. I showed you the answer." Jesus is basically saying, hey, look at what I've done. That should answer your question. What more do you expect a Messiah to do? And when we think about the miracles that Jesus has done, we think about the teachings that he shared and the life that he's lived, as the rabbi who's got these followers going after him, who has crowds hanging on his every word, we know that the answer is pretty clear. If you can walk on water, if you can raise people from the dead, if you can heal a man born blind, you are the Messiah. You are the anointed one that God has sent. We need to pay attention to what it is that you have to say. And that should be clear, but instead of that, the Jewish leaders here are saying, hey, it's murdering us that we don't know for sure because we want you to say something, get yourself in trouble. So they're focused on that instead of focusing on Jesus being the Messiah. So we have that idea of, hey, it's murdering us. We have the idea of Jesus as the Messiah. And then we have the concept given here that Jesus says, hey, the works that I've done through the Father testify about me. So in other words, the miracles that you have seen reveal who I am. Just take a look. It's not by accident I've done these miracles. It's not a whim, a kind of a showy display that I've healed so many. I'm trying to help you understand that I'm the one that God has sent. So even if what I'm saying is hard for you to hear, you need to listen, you need to believe, because this is the one you've been waiting for. It calls back for me earlier things that Jesus shares in John chapter 10. In verse 14 through 15, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Jesus reminds us in John chapter 10 that if you're his sheep, you'll recognize his voice. Now, I want you to think about your dog. If you have a dog or maybe a cat, most of us probably don't have sheep. But in their day, the shepherds who kept the sheep taught the sheep to respond to their voice. And the sheep understood, hey, this is my shepherd's voice. He's probably got food. He's got shelter. I should listen to what he has to say. He knows me by name. When he calls, I need to run to him. The same thing likely happens for you when you come in your house and your dog or your cat or your pet hear your voice. They're so excited. They run and they jump on you. For those of us who have children, hey, it's a similar kind of thing. When your young children hear your voice, my kids say, Daddo, as soon as they hear my voice, sometimes as soon as they hear the notification on our security system that I've opened the door, they say Daddo because they want to know that I'm there and to play with me. Jesus gives us that concept here. He says, and that's what he wants these Jewish leaders to experience, to hear his voice and say, this is the one we've been waiting for. No matter what he says, even if it changes everything about my life, I'm going to follow after it because this is my shepherd. This is the anointed one that God has sent. This is the king who's meant to reign over my life. And not only do I get to hear his voice, but I get to see the proof of who he is, of the sheep that he's saved from falling down into a ravine, by healing them, by rescuing them, by bringing them into his herd. He can do that for me. So as I read this passage, I want to be reminded that Jesus wants that kind of relationship with me. I don't want to miss his voice. I want to be hanging on every word, be ready to leap at the first sound that comes out of his mouth so that I can be the first one to follow after him and listen to what it is that he wants for me.